Are you tired of using Adobe Lightroom and you're looking for another alternative to edit your pictures? Well, I found this very good software which even Prince Mason use, Ronix Photography uses, and some other photographers that you might know out there in the internet. They use this software to edit their pictures and it comes out very well. So I discovered it and I've tried it and I've been using it to edit many of my pictures. I've made a couple of videos about it before, which you can check over here, but in this video I'll be going deeper and giving you extensive tutorial about this software. It is called Capture One. Let's get into it. So for a start, this is how the interface is, and it is very simple. You can create catalogs or sessions which will be titled over here. For this purpose, I have this one as YouTube tutorial, and over here you have where you have your adjustments in this tab called adjust. There are other mini tabs like when you want to work on the style, shape, and theta for when you connect your camera directly to your computer system, and library where you can get the images you've imported and worked on in the previous time. They will be found here. Mind you that each library is dependent on the session. So if I open an old session which I had before, let's say I open this session here, the library will have other pictures that has been imported into that session or catalog. So over here we have these pictures recent, and we have these pictures that I've already imported and worked on here. By the way, for this I am going to be using this particular one, and that is it. So in this case we have the library, of course, and then I'll be showing you more on the adjustments area. In here is where you can import your pictures. So you click on this and it is going to open a folder for you where you can import pictures. This was my last import. I can create or search for where I can import pictures over here, but for me this is quite long, so I will cancel this for now. The second way of importing pictures is opening the file where the picture is and dragging the folder inside Capture One. It's going to import them there, so let me do that right away. In the previous video I posted, I showed you how you can select pictures fast using Photo Mechanic, and those pictures were created or posted in a folder which is this select 2, and I'll be editing pictures from this place. So I'll be taking in select 2 and dragging and dropping here. By the way, if you've not watched that video, go now to watch it. It's going to show you how you can select images as fast as in seconds, and especially the second method being too fast that you don't need to bother the time it will take you to select any image because it won't take you any time. So over here we have this listed and they're all already selected, and there are various views. You can change the viewer to this or to this. So I will click on import all. Since I've already selected them, I don't need to check which ones I need and which ones I don't need, and it is generating previews for it. Then you can start editing. I can choose to edit on any one and then multiply the edit across all other ones. In this case, I rather choose the one with the highest number of colors because it's going to help me edit all the colors as it should be and work on them, then copy that setting and that edit to the rest of the image. Those that don't have much colors will not really be touched. They will just be affected where there is need to. So in this case, I'll be using this picture here to work on it. Now over here is my adjustment area. There is the histogram, there is the layers, there is the smart adjustment, but we wouldn't need those ones for now. I will start from white balance down, actually from exposure down. So from exposure, I first will do this automatic. It doesn't even really matter, but it just gives me an overview of somewhere I would like to go later. And then in the high dynamic range HDR, I will turn down the highlight and the whites more. Now, why do I do this? So that any texture will show more. So let's say for instance, the highlight is turned up. It's going, is that, yeah. So let's say for instance, the highlight is turned up. You see that the white is more washed out. Let me turn this in the middle here. You see how it is? The white is more washed out than when the highlight is low. So if it is low, we have something like this, and even if I turn the white down, it even makes it better. And moreover, if you look at this histogram over here, you see that the same thing with the one we have here. You see that it's tilting towards the shadow. This tilting towards the highlight, sorry. This is the shadow, this is black, this area is shadow, this area is mid-tone, this is highlight, this is white. And if I turn back the exposure, you see it is still going back there. So let me just do this. And when I turn down the highlight, it brings it even closer to the middle, and when I turn down the white, it brings it closer to the middle. The aim is to get it as close to the midtones as much as possible. So that is what I am doing here. Let me close this up because I have this one to look at. They're both the same. The next, I can choose to increase the shadows a bit, and increasing the shadow, I am kind of removing out this area that is quite dark. So the more I increase it, the more it gets a little bit brighter. So to understand how these switches work, you can pull them to the extreme and pull them to the other extreme to see the results. That way it will give you a better understanding of how they work. And if you want to reset it, you double click on it to reset it. So double click, it resets. I will take this up a little and take the black up a little as well. As you can see, we are getting closer to the middle. Now for clarity and structure, what these two does is one works on the harshness of the light more, the other one works on the texture of the skin more. So let's say for instance, let me zoom into this face. Let's say for instance, this is how the texture of the skin looks when the clarity and structure is at 0. Make sure we have it neutral. If I increase the clarity, the light will look harsher. So this is how it is now. And if I reduce the clarity, the light will look less harsh. So I like keeping my clarity around somewhere here, but let me get back to that. Now for the structure, if I reduce the structure, the picture will look a little bit out of focus. So this is how the picture looks. And if I increase the structure, it will bring it more into focus. So if you have struggles with focusing in your camera on your lens, or you have a picture that looks like it is a little bit out of focus, this will help you get it right. So what do I do here? The best thing for me to do is I reduce my clarity a little to soften the light, and I increase the structure to make it even sharper. So I like doing it opposite. So if this is minus a number, this will be plus that number. So over here we have minus 54. So right here I'm gonna put 54 to just balance it. That's just my own rule. I don't think it's a must, it must be that way. Now down to the levels. You can make the levels. I like taking in the highlights in and the shadows in as well. It's just going to give you that extra punch and contrast, but make sure you don't overdo it, because when you do, it's not going to look good. So we're still approaching the center, and down here now, this is the curve. The last time I used Lightroom, it doesn't have this Luma. I don't know if it still has the Luma. What is the difference between Luma and RGB? Simple. RGB works on the colors, so it increases the highlight and shadows of each colors uniformly, while Luma just works on the highlight and shadows irrespective of color. What do I mean? So let's say we do RGB, the one many of us already know. So for the RGB, if I do this way, or let me take it up, it's going to increase and make it look quite dark and saturated, creating this look or this shape here. Look at how it looks. Now look at this shape very well. I will create something very similar to this using Luma. So let me reset this one first. Then I go to Luma and I create something similar to that. And look at how this looks. It doesn't care about the color. It just makes it darker. It doesn't care about the color. Again, this is what it looked like. Let me reset this. So I will show you what it looked like with RGB and what it looked like with Luma in the screen there. So that's what it looks like. And then I like working on the Luma because that's what I prefer. Because let's say you want to do melanin popping skin, it's easier to do it over here. So for this case, I'll reduce the highlights, increase the shadows to throw in a little bit of offsets there. So it kind of tries to smoothen things instead of making it punch out. Now this is all based on preference. You can choose to go this way where you increase the highlight and reduce the shadows, but in this case it's not looking that good, so I rather do it this way, so it's better. Next is the color editor. I don't usually do anything here. I leave that for when I get into camera raw, right? Yeah, when I get into camera raw after retouching the picture in Photoshop. But this is simply the same thing that Lightroom does. So if you don't already know, we have red, orange, yellow, blue, or aqua, blue, purple, violet. And in the hue, if you're on red and you drag this slider to this place, it kind of tends to give you this color for the red. And if you drag it to this place, it kind of tends to give you this color, which is orange, for the red. So that is how the hue works. The saturation increases the saturation of that particular color. So as you can see, I'm increasing the reds and the reds are increasing. And if I reduce the saturation, the reds are reduced drastically. And the lightness or the luminance for Adobe products increases how bright that color is represented. So in this case, I will darken the red a little, increase the saturation so that it's pop. Yeah, some people love that pop. I don't know why. And then for the orange, which is basically the skin tone settings. I reduce the saturation a little, and if the person is dark and I want to create more of that dark appeal, I reduce the luminance. So if the person is fair, I can increase it, but this all depends on how the picture looks at the end. So try not to change the hue of the orange because it's mostly the skin color, and if you do that, the person will look like an alien. So look at this, looks like there's no much blood in the person's body and there's too much, so leave it at orange. And now we have the color balance, which is the same thing with color grading camera raw. So we have the three-way, the shadow, the midtone, and the highlight. And this is where you can set up how you want the color of the picture to be, the predominant colors of the picture. This is where you color grade your picture if you want a very custom type of color. So for the master, I want this color to look more around yellow, just something like that. And for the shadows, I want it to look a little bit on the bluish side. I can increase how much blue I want and how dark I want it, but I'll keep this in the center and keep this where it should be. So let me just increase that a little bit here. For the midtones, I will leave that for now, and for the highlight, I will go with something around here. So this will look this way. I need to look closer to see. All right, then for the midtones, I will go with something. Now whatever you're doing, make sure that you pay attention to the skin tone so that you don't go far from it. So I think I'll keep it this way, and that is that for color balance. For black and white, it's just black and white we're talking about here. And going down to the haze is if the picture looks hazy. How do I explain this? If a picture has a lot of white shade or smoke, kind of white smoke, you increase the dehaze, it's going to eliminate those whites. And if it has a lot of color which cannot be taken away by saturation, you reduce the dehaze, so it will add some haze into it and tone down color. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So that is how go about the dehaze. In this case, I will touch it up a little bit. And then vignette, we all know what vignette does exactly. That's just what it does. Some people like this effect. I don't like it for any reason. I don't know why. And then sharpen, if you want this picture to even be sharper, this is where you do your sharpen. So I can touch this up. As you can see, the effect is already showing up, and reduce the radius or increase the radius, whichever one I prefer to do. I can do that. For this case, I will keep the sharpness at this level, so somewhere around here is fine, and reduce somewhere around here, so this picture is going to look sharp. Make sure you don't overdo it so the picture doesn't look too grainy, because what sharpness does is it brings out the texture in the picture, and when your picture has a lot of texture already, it's going to look too grainy. So when I am done with this, I can now copy this effect and export it all over the other pictures. So this is it. I copy over here, and when I click on Ctrl A, it will select the rest of the pictures, and I click on apply, which will apply that same effect onto all the pictures. Of course, I can choose to still adjust them accordingly. For instance, in this case, this is quite dark. I can increase it and increase the contrast as well. And I think I should also do it in that particular picture because I didn't touch that side. I increase this, increase the contrast as well. I don't usually touch these two, but if there is need for that, go ahead to do it. Do the same thing over here. Over here, the same thing. I think at this point I should just copy this one, and since all of them are still selected, I apply it, and it's going to apply that same setting to the rest of the images. So this one is this. It is too sharp. You see what I'm talking about when you are working on the sharpness. So I'll just reset this sharpness. Moreover, I didn't need to make it that sharper, so I will reset it and apply it for the rest of the images. You already know how this works. And then let's say you have something like this. What do you do there? You simply reduce the exposure. When you've done that, you can start seeing if there is any other adjustment that you need to do on it. So I think this is fine. Yeah, so something like this is good. Let me increase it a little bit. And this picture is even out of focus. Moreover, we've already selected the good pictures that we needed. In the last video, everything was explained. So this picture is not really that sharp, but that was why it wasn't selected. By the way, these are the rejects that I'm using to do this work, because I've already worked on the ones that needed to be worked on. And that is it for your capture one for editing pictures. Now this is not as perfect. You need more practice and skill to get what you want. But I'll be showing you the one I had already done and end result of the whole thing after working with it in Photoshop and Camera Raw as well. Now, would you need Camera Raw after doing this? Of course not, you don't, but I prefer to give it my own final touch. So that's why I just use Camera Raw for the final part of the image. And I have a tutorial for that over here as well. So do well to watch it after watching this one. And you can find all these videos I've been mentioning in the description too. Thank you very much. So when you're done, the next thing is to export. But before we export, this space is too much. I use this tool to crop the image. Over here we have some essential tools. This is the select tool. This is the hand or pan tool. This is your loop. It says click on any part of your photo to inspect a zoomed in view of it. So this is it. So if I click on this, you see that I will see a zoomed in view of it. It's like a microscope to check the photo and see what it looks like if zoomed in, if I don't want to zoom in. So instead of doing this, I just do that, which I think is better than just going into the person's face. And this is the crop tool. So in this case, I can crop it to anything I want. And if you want to give it a particular dimension, you right click on it and you will see the dimensions. In this case, I will use 4:5. Take it down so that the spaces on the top of his head will be eliminated. And this leg, I don't want it to show much, so I will reduce this a little as well. So something like this is fine. Click on enter. Now, as you can see, all of them have been given the 4:5 ratio already because all of them were selected. When I click on enter, I have done this one. Then on this one, I can choose to start selecting them one after the other. And for this case, I can move this because it's quite one side. For this case, this is fine. Just need to tighten the space a little. You get the point. This is how it works with Capture One. Now, what do you do in cases where you have something like this? I don't crop it. I leave it that way. So I leave it as original and I do the cropping with content away to in Photoshop when I'm editing it inside Photoshop. So I'll leave this one as it is. So make sure that when you are changing the dimension, everything is not selected. If not, it's going to change the dimension of everything. So that's how this should be done. And then when you're done with everything, I have applied it by just changing to the move tool. And then you select all, make sure all of them are selected. Then you go to export. Simple way of exporting. When you click on export or Ctrl+Shift+D, you make sure you select JPG full size. Turn this one off and then go to this one. So over here we have the location of where it is going to be saved. It is same as the original and it is going to create subfolder for that. On default, you might have something else here. You choose folder first, and then when you've already selected this, you can go back and set it to save or same as original. I give it the name edit. Let me give it edit 2. And if there are existing files with this same picture, it's going to overwrite it in my own settings. You can add suffix if you want the two of them to lay side by side, or you can just skip it if you don't want it to do anything on that one. And down here you have the format, and for the quality I keep mine at 90 and resolutions at 300 pixels per inch. Now for the long edge, I like keeping the scale at 2500 pixels. So we'll have 2500 pixels generally at 300 pixels per inch. So if you do the maths, you know how many inches the picture could be. And if you want to edit immediately in Photoshop, when you are done, you tell it to open in Adobe Photoshop. For me, I said no. And every other thing doesn't really matter here. Now for watermark, you can choose to add your watermark here or not. Maybe when you are done with editing it in Photoshop, which I think many of us like to do, you now add your watermark. But if it is a church event or something that you don't need to edit in Photoshop, this is where you can add your watermark. And I can choose a watermark here. So I can click on this to select the watermark which I want to choose. So let me click on this arrow instead, and I'm going to my own logo. So I'll use this, click on, it's going to place it there. I can reduce the opacity to make it lighter. I can reduce the scale to make it smaller. I can use this hand to move it around to anywhere I want, reduce the scale even further, move horizontally or move it vertically. Click on the hand again to turn it off. And down here we have summary. Please, if you cannot see all these things, make sure that you turned on show all options. If it is not turned on, you will not be able to see all these things. So in the summary, it has given us the size of the image. File size is 1.28 megabytes, and the file size of course changes based on pictures, but so far 1.28 megabytes is what this is 1.06. So Almost all the pictures are at 1.28 megabytes, which is not bad, and the watermark is on all of them. So you click on export and it exports the pictures for you. I actually was thinking that this video will take two, or this tutorial will take two or more videos, but I refuse to do a deep dive again into this, simply because who needs a deep dive when you just need to get the results? I don't. But if you want a deep dive into it, please let me know in the comment section. If you don't want a deep dive into it, just don't bother about it. So let me know in the comment section what you think while we wait for the export to be completed. And that is that for this video. I'll be showing you the pictures now after being exported. And if you want to know more about photography, learn more about photography, there's a playlist I have will give you everything you need to know about photography there. And there'll be more videos coming up subsequently, both on the business of photography, on everything about photography generally, whether you need a big camera or a small camera and all that. Everything will be handled in the subsequent videos coming up this year. So the picture is done exporting, showing folder, edit to, and these are the pictures that has been exported here. So as you can see, they are all in one place, and the size is 2000 by 2500. And if you can check it, it's predicted to be 1.28, but this one is 1.23, 1.65. So basically it's going to give you the file size like a prediction, but what it's going to finally do might be quite lower or a little bit higher, but it won't be far from the estimated file size after export. So these are the pictures, and we've come to the end of this video. Please do well to like, share, subscribe if you've not subscribed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.